In 1939, Will Durant published the second of 11 volumes on the story of civilization. The life of Greece, from a humble rise in 3500 BC to the peak of ingenuity in 1000 BC, followed by an equally spectacular and brutal conquest by Rome, decimating Greece in 146 BC. 3,000 years of Greek history, this story races through the Greek civilization like a blurry time lapse, attempting to extract meaning and trying to learn from the mistakes of our ancestors. Each volume and chapter in this series can be listened to independently. You can sit back and watch the story unfold, or skip to the sections that resonate most with the events around you. The following is a comprehensive summary of the story of civilization, the life of Greece. Preface. Greek civilization, beginning with the oldest remnants of Crete and Troy and ending with the Roman conquest, the legacy of Greece is immense. Almost every aspect of our secular culture originates from Greece. Schools, gymnasiums, philosophy, and politics, these are all Greek terms. Even the challenges that confront us today, from environmental concerns to social conflicts, could be found in ancient Greece. Understanding Greek civilization is key to understanding our own. Our exploration will follow a chronological narrative, beginning with Crete, the cradle of Minoan civilization, and Troy as they represent the prehistoric culture that shaped the Achaeans and Dorians into these so-called Greeks we speak of. We will then immerse ourselves in the world of Homer, experiencing the age of warriors, pirates, and poets. From there, we'll follow the rise of Sparta and Athens under Lycurgus and Solon, witnessing their expansion across the Aegean and beyond. We'll witness the triumphs and tragedies of Athenian democracy, from its victory at Marathon to its flourishing under Pericles and its eventual decline after the Peloponnesian War. The intellectual achievements of the Greeks, the rise of rational thought, and the emergence of new sciences will capture our attention. We'll examine the peaks of Greek art and philosophy, from the plays of Sophocles to the thought of Socrates. Our focus then shifts to the legacy of Alexander the Great and the spread of Greek culture throughout the Hellenistic world. Then we observe the enduring impact of Greek thought through figures like Euclid, Archimedes, Zeno, and Epicurus. Finally, we'll witness the eventual decline of Greek civilization, marked by internal conflicts and the eventual assimilation into the Roman Empire, leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape the world. Chapter 1. The Rise and Fall of Minoan Crete. Crete, the jewel of the Mediterranean, sits perfectly between Egypt, Turkey, Libya, and Italy. The Mediterranean Sea, with its temperate climate and scattering of islands, served as a fertile ground for the blossoming of civilization. The islands in particular, offering safe harbor for ships and facilitating trade across long distances. This ease of navigation allowed the Greeks and the Phoenicians to develop their seafaring prowess. The rediscovery of Crete. Crete, the fair, rich land, begirt with water, lay largely forgotten, its vibrant past buried beneath the earth. The excavation of Minos Palace at Knossos in 1900 by Arthur Evans revealed a civilization as intricate and sophisticated as any yet known. The reconstruction of a civilization. Despite the limitations of archaeological evidence, we can tentatively reconstruct the Minoan world. Their cities, with paved streets and multi-storied buildings, bustled with industry and trade. They were a people of sport and spectacle, with a love for bull leaping. The fall of Knossos. The precise cause of the Minoan decline remains shrouded in mystery. Around 1400 BC, a wave of destruction swept across Crete, leaving its palaces in ruins, including the Grand Palace of Knossos. Whether this devastation resulted from invasion, internal strife, or natural disaster is a matter of debate. Despite this catastrophic downfall, the echoes of Minoan civilization reverberated in the art and legends of Greece. The myths of Daedalus, Theseus, and the Minotaur all point to a time when Crete commanded the waves and shaped the destiny of nations. The later legal systems of Sparta and Athens also bore the imprint of Minoan influence, suggesting a cultural exchange that transcended the island's political demise. Chapter 2. Before Agamemnon. Unveiling the Mycenaean world. While the glories of Minoan Crete shine brightly, we must shift our gaze now to the mainland, where a civilization equally ancient and influential took root, the Mycenaean. Schliemann. The world of archaeology owes a great debt to Heinrich Schliemann, a man driven by a passion for Homer's epics. Schliemann, a self-made merchant who mastered a dozen languages, dedicated his life and fortune to proving the historical reality behind the legends. In 1870, he set his sights on Hisaluk, a hill in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. He believed it to be the site of ancient Troy. Despite facing skepticism and opposition, he unearthed a trove of treasures, declaring, "I have unearthed the treasury of Priam." Though his conclusions about Priam's treasure were later challenged, his discoveries at Troy, Mycenae, and Turin opened a window into the world of Bronze Age Greece, revealing a civilization far older than classical Greece. In the palaces of the kings, the formidable citadels of Turin and Mycenae stand as silent witnesses to the power and grandeur of the Mycenaean world, now the southern region of modern-day Greece. These fortresses, with their massive stone structures that seem to defy human construction, bespeak a world of danger and conflict. At Turin, the walls rose from 25 to 50 feet in height and were so thick that at several places they contained spacious galleries. Within these fortified walls lay not just military might, but also the bustling life of a Bronze Age city. Palaces, adorned with frescoes and paved courts, housed rulers who commanded both land and sea. The Megaron, a grand hall with its central hearth, served as the heart of the palace and the display of royal power. Mycenaean civilization. The Mycenaeans, whom Greek tradition called Pelasgians, were likely a mix of indigenous peoples and migrants from Asia Minor, now called Anatolia in present-day Turkey. They built their cities not just at Mycenae and Turin, but across the Greek mainland, leaving their mark on Attica, the Peloponnesus, and beyond. Unlike the Minoans, who favored trade, the Mycenaeans initially gained wealth through piracy. The kings of Mycenae and Turin had Cretan artists engrave for them on their vases and rings, a proud record of their achievements in piracy. However, they later embraced commerce, their ships sailing as far as Egypt and the Black Sea. While less advanced in writing than the Minoans, the Mycenaeans excelled in other arts. Their frescoes, though often depicting scenes of hunting and war, reveal an artistic tradition. The ladies in the box, with their fashionable gowns and coiffures, capture the elegance and sophistication of Mycenaean high society. The Mycenaeans also mastered the art of metalworking, creating exquisite jewelry, weapons, and ornaments, including the iconic golden masks that covered the faces of their dead rulers. Troy. Located near the entrance to the Hellespont, now a strait in modern-day Turkey, Troy controlled a vital trade route between the Aegean and the Black Sea. Excavations at Troy have revealed a city that rose and fell multiple times, each layer of ruins a testament to its enduring strategic importance. The discovery of monochrome vases of finer workmanship and potsherds, similar to those found in Mycenae, suggest strong connections between these two powerful civilizations. While Homer paints a picture of noble Trojans locked in a tragic war with the Greeks, the historical reality is likely more complex. Troy's strategic location and control over trade routes may have made it a tempting target for Mycenaean ambition, with the mythical Helen serving as a convenient pretext for conflict. The fall of Mycenaean civilization, like that of the Minoans, remains shrouded in mystery. Whether brought down by invasion, internal strife, or natural disaster, their legacy lived on. The myths and legends of the Mycenaean age, passed down through generations, would later inspire Homer's epics, shaping the very identity of Greece. Chapter 3. Achaean Greece. The Achaeans. The Achaeans, a Greek-speaking people who rose to prominence in the late Bronze Age, present a fascinating puzzle to historians. The origins of Achaeans and their relationship to the earlier Mycenaean civilization are subjects of debate. Were they, as classical Greek tradition holds, an indigenous people whose culture seamlessly evolved from the Mycenaean? Or, as Ridgway proposed, Were they invaders from the north who superimposed their rule and customs upon a conquered population? While the sources are silent on an Achaean invasion, the evidence suggests a more complex interplay of continuity and change. Place names like Corinth and Turins hint at a pre-Achaean language, perhaps linked to the Mycenaeans. The Achaeans likely migrated from Thessaly into the Peloponnesus, gradually assuming a dominant role and contributing to the eventual demise of Mycenaean civilization. As the amalgamation proceeded, Aegean civilization passed away, dying in the defeat of Troy, and Greek civilization began. For example, the presence of iron in Achaean society, a metal largely absent in Mycenaean remains, suggests a shift in technology and perhaps influence from outside Greece. The heroic legends. The myths and legends of the Achaeans offer tantalizing glimpses into their character and history. Passed down through generations, these tales, often imbued with violence and superhuman feats, likely contain kernels of historical truth. The story of Pelops, for example, suggests a connection between the Achaeans and Asia Minor. Pelops, exiled from Phrygia, establishes his lineage in Elis, and his descendants, including Agamemnon and Menelaus, rise to rule the eastern Peloponnesus, a region in the south of modern-day Greece. Another significant legend revolves around the Argonauts, a band of heroes who embark on a perilous quest for the Golden Fleece. This tale, with its themes of exploration, war, and treachery, may reflect early Greek attempts to navigate the Hellespont and establish trade routes in the Black Sea. In today's terms, this means heading north from Greece, passing through Istanbul, and entering the Black Sea. Homeric civilization. Homer's epics, though composed centuries after the events they depict, provide a vivid, if potentially romanticized, portrait of Achaean Greece. It is a world of strong men and beautiful women, where physical prowess and martial skill are prized above all else. Writing is barely mentioned, and the only literature is the oral poetry of bards who sing of heroes and battles. For example, in the Odyssey, when Odysseus is entertained by King Alcinous, the blind bard Demodocus is summoned. The poet describes how the god granted Demodocus skill in song. Of his sight she deprived him, but gave him the gift of sweet song. The Siege of Troy. The Trojan War, a central event in Greek consciousness, served as a rallying cry. The conflict's roots likely lay in economic and strategic rivalries. Control of the Hellespont, a vital trade route, and access to the resources of Asia Minor were likely at stake. The Iliad, with its unflinching depiction of violence and its poignant portrayal of human drama, captures the essence of this epic struggle. From Achilles' rage to Hector's nobility, the poem reveals the complexities of war and the enduring power of human emotion. The Homecoming. The aftermath of the Trojan War brought not triumph but a wave of tragedy and hardship. Many heroes perished at sea or faced turmoil upon their return. Agamemnon, victorious but weary, is murdered by his wife and her lover upon reaching Mycenae. The Dorian Conquest. Around 1104 BC, as the Achaean world reeled from internal strife and the exhaustion of war, a new threat emerged from the north, the Dorians. Armed with iron weapons, these invaders swept through Greece, shattering the remnants of Mycenaean civilization and ushering in a period of chaos and decline. Cities burned, populations were displaced, and the arts and crafts of the Aegean world suffered a severe setback. This period, known as the Greek Dark Ages, marked a significant rupture in Greek history. Yet, even amidst the destruction, the seeds of a new Greece were being sown. The fusion of Dorian and Aegean cultures, along with the dispersal of Greek populations throughout the Aegean and Asia Minor, would eventually lay the foundation for the resurgence of Greek civilization in the centuries to come. Chapter 4. Sparta. Let us embark on a journey through the Greek world, exploring the diverse city-states that comprise this ancient civilization. The environment of Greece. Before we venture into the heart of Greece, let's first survey its surroundings. Greece, or Hellas, encompassed all lands inhabited by Greek-speaking people. It was a land shaped by mountains and the sea. To the southeast, Egypt, a civilization of remarkable depth and antiquity, profoundly influenced Greek thought and culture. The Greeks acknowledged Egypt as a wellspring of their civilization, with legends attributing the founding of several Greek cities to individuals of Egyptian origin. The monumental architecture and advanced arts of Egypt, particularly evident during the reign of the Saite kings 663 to 525 BC, served as a testament to their long-standing cultural heritage. Notable Greeks, including Thales, Pythagoras, Solon, Plato, and Democritus, embarked on pilgrimages to Egypt, returning with an appreciation for its ancient wisdom. The Egyptians, in turn, viewed the Greeks as a youthful civilization, as evidenced by the words of an Egyptian priest to Solon. "You Greeks are mere children, talkative and vain, and knowing nothing of the past." The exchange between these two civilizations was multifaceted, encompassing geometry, bronze casting, pottery, textiles, metalworking, and ivory. The architectural grandeur of Egypt, reflected in the colonnades of Saqqara and Beni Hassan, provided inspiration for the Greeks' own Doric style. This interplay between Greece and Egypt highlights the interconnectedness of ancient civilizations, with Greece in its youth humbly learning from its more ancient counterpart, Argos. Argos, a city steeped in mythology, traces its origins back to the Pelasgic Argus, a hundred-eyed giant. Its rise to prominence is linked to Danaus, an Egyptian who, according to legend, introduced the practice of irrigation using wells. Situated on a plain, Argos exemplifies the typical Greek city-state by its modest dwellings, a hilltop temple, an open-air theater, and the ever-present allure of the sea. Sparta. South of Argos lies Sparta, a city that would rise to prominence for its military prowess and austere way of life. Sparta's dominance was established through the subjugation of the native population, particularly in neighboring Messenia. This conquest led to the enslavement of the Messenians, who became Helots, a class bound to the land and subject to Spartan rule. The Spartan society that emerged under the legendary lawgiver Lycurgus was rigidly hierarchical. With an elite warrior at its apex, the Perioeci or free non-citizens forming the middle class, and the Helots constituting the lowest rung of the social ladder. The Helots, named after the conquered city of Hellas, numbered significantly larger than Spartan citizens. Despite their subjugated status, Helots possessed a degree of autonomy uncommon in ancient slavery. They could maintain families, cultivate land in their own manner, and resided in separate villages. However, they were subject to Spartan martial law and the constant threat of violence. The harsh realities of Spartan society necessitated such measures to maintain order and prevent uprisings. The Spartans, acutely aware of the numerical superiority of the Helots, lived in a state of constant vigilance. Their social structure and military training geared towards suppressing potential rebellions. Forgotten states. Beyond the reach of Spartan control lay Arcadia, a mountainous region inhabited by Achaean and Pelasgian populations. The Arcadians, inhabiting a land where nature itself posed challenges, maintained a simple existence. Their history is largely absent from the grand narratives of conquest and empire that dominated Greek history prior to the Persian War. Further west, Elis, home to the Pan-Hellenic sanctuary of Olympia, enjoyed a relatively peaceful existence. Olympia, dedicated to Zeus, transcended the political divisions of the Greek world, becoming a site of sacred truce during the Olympic Games. The Eleans, believed to be of Ialic or Pelasgian descent, as recounted by Pausanias, played a pivotal role in maintaining the sanctity of this revered location. Corinth. Strategically positioned on the Isthmus of Corinth, its location allowed control over trade routes between northern and southern Greece. Recognizing the limitations imposed by the isthmus, the Corinthians ingeniously constructed the Diolkos, a paved roadway that enabled ships to be transported overland, solidifying their commercial dominance. Corinth's history, like that of many Greek city-states, was marked by periods of both prosperity and upheaval. Under the tyranny of Cypselus and his son Periander 655 to 585 BC, Corinth experienced an era of unprecedented economic growth and artistic patronage. Periander, known for his shrewdness, implemented policies like the introduction of coinage, tax reductions, and public projects to address unemployment. Megara. Megara, situated at the gateway to the Peloponnesus, shared Corinth's commercial ambition. Its strategic location enabled it to control trade routes and impose tolls, while its textile industry, reliant on slave labor, contributed to its wealth. Megara's prosperity was marred by social unrest, stemming from the unequal distribution of wealth and the exploitation of the lower classes. The poet Theonis, witnessing firsthand Megara's tumultuous history, says the following: "Our state is pregnant, shortly to produce a rude avenger of prolonged abuse. The commons hitherto seem sober-minded, but their superiors are corrupt and blinded. These are our ruin, Cyrnus, never dream. Tranquil and undisturbed as it may seem. Of future peace or safety to the state, bloodshed and strife will follow soon or late." These lines capture the class conflict that plagued Megara and many other Greek city-states during this period. Theonis's poetry serves as a timeless reminder of the enduring tensions between the privileged few and the disenfranchised masses, a struggle that continues to resonate throughout history. Aegina and Epidaurus. Aegina, a rocky island situated near Athens, rose to prominence through its maritime trade and skilled craftsmanship. Despite its limited agricultural potential, Aegina's strategic location and entrepreneurial spirit enabled it to flourish. In contrast to Aegina's focus on material wealth, Epidaurus, located on the Argolic Peninsula, achieved renown as a center for healing and religious pilgrimage. The sanctuary of Asclepius, the god of medicine, attracted people from across the Greek world seeking cures for their ailments. The Asclepian at Epidaurus, with its impressive temple, stadium, and thelos, stands as a testament to the enduring human desire for health and well-being. Beyond its association with healing, Epidaurus is also celebrated for its remarkable theater, a masterpiece of ancient Greek architecture designed by Polyclitus the Younger. This well-preserved theater, with its exceptional acoustics and commanding views, offers a glimpse into the cultural life of ancient Greece. Our exploration of these diverse city-states reveals the nature of ancient Greek civilization. From the austere militarism of Sparta to the commercial dynamism of Corinth and the artistic achievements of Epidaurus, the Greek world was woven from a rich array of cultural, political, and economic threads. Chapter 5. Athens. We begin in the heart of Boeotia, which is present-day central Greece, a region of fertile plains and rugged mountains. Delphi. Our journey continues southward, leading us to the awe-inspiring site of Delphi. Nestled on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, Delphi was considered by the Greeks to be the omphalos, the very navel of the world. It was here, amidst the dramatic landscape of towering cliffs and the silver-green expanse of olive groves, that the oracle of Apollo resided. Pilgrims from all corners of the Greek world flocked to this sacred sanctuary, seeking the wisdom and guidance of the god. The lesser states. Our travels then take us westward through the rugged landscapes of Locris, Aetolia, Acarnania, and Ionia. These lesser states, often overlooked in the grand narratives of Greek history, offer a look into a simpler, more rural existence. While lacking the artistic and intellectual dynamism of Athens, these regions possessed a quiet charm and a connection to the land that shaped the lives and beliefs of their inhabitants. Here, amidst the rushing waters of the Acheloos River, lies the highest peak of Mount Olympus and the strategic pass of Thermopylae. Attica. Leaving the western regions behind, we find ourselves in Attica, a peninsula bathed in the clear, bright light of the Aegean sun. The very atmosphere seems different, clean, sharp, and bright. Each year here has 300 sunny days. Unlike the fertile plains of Boeotia or Thessaly, Attica presented its inhabitants with the challenge of a harsh and unforgiving terrain. Yet, it was precisely this environment, combined with its extensive coastline and numerous natural harbors, that would shape the destiny of Attica, propelling its people towards a life of trade, seafaring, and ultimately empire. The background of Athens. At the heart of Attica lay Athens, a city initially bound by the ties of kinship and tradition. These communities, scattered across the Attic landscape, were united, according to legend, by the hero Theseus. Over time, Athens gradually rose to prominence. As we trace its early history, we witness the transition from monarchy to oligarchy, a shift reflecting the enduring struggle for power between the ruling elite and the aspirations of a growing populace. Athens under the oligarchs. For centuries, Athens was ruled by a small group of aristocratic families known as the Eupatrids, meaning well-born. This period witnessed a stark social stratification, with the Eupatrids holding a monopoly on political power and economic opportunity. The lower classes, burdened by debt and landlessness, found themselves increasingly marginalized. The disparity of fortune between the rich and the poor, says Plutarch, had reached its height, so that the city seemed to be in a truly dangerous condition, and no other means for freeing it from disturbances. This volatile climate set the stage for the rise of a remarkable figure, Solon. The Solonian Revolution. Solon, a man of both aristocratic lineage and remarkable integrity, emerged as a beacon of hope during this tumultuous period. Tasked with restoring order to Athens, Solon undertook a series of reforms that would forever alter the course of the city's history. His most impactful measure, the Sysastheia, or removal of burdens, saw the cancellation of all existing debts and the liberation of those enslaved due to indebtedness. As Aristotle notes, Solon canceled all existing debts, whether owing to private persons or to the state. While met with resistance from the wealthy, Solon's reforms laid the foundation for a more equitable society, fostering economic growth and paving the way for greater political participation. The dictatorship of Pisistratus. Following Solon's reforms, Athens entered a period of relative stability. However, the underlying tensions between the social classes persisted. It was in this climate that Pisistratus, a shrewd and ambitious aristocrat, seized power. Despite his methods, Pisistratus proved to be a capable and surprisingly benevolent ruler. He maintained Solon's constitution, albeit with himself as the guiding hand. His administration, says Aristotle, was temperate and showed the statesman rather than the tyrant. Pisistratus invested in public works, promoted cultural activities, and fostered economic prosperity, inadvertently laying the groundwork for the flourishing democracy that would follow. The establishment of democracy. The Pisistratic tyranny, though largely peaceful and prosperous, eventually sowed the seeds of its own demise. After the assassination of Hipparchus, Hippias, the elder son of Pisistratus, resorted to oppressive measures, fueling a popular desire for freedom. The Alcmaeonids, a powerful Athenian family, capitalized on this discontent, orchestrating the expulsion of Hippias with Spartan aid. Plisthenes, a visionary leader from within the Alcmaeonid ranks, then took center stage. Recognizing the need for a more inclusive system, Plisthenes implemented radical reforms. He restructured Athenian society, replacing the old tribal affiliations with a new system of 10 geographically diverse tribes, effectively dismantling the traditional power base of the aristocracy. Plisthenes abolished the kinship classification and replaced it with a territorial division into 10 tribes, each composed of a varying number of demes. With this act, Plisthenes ushered in a new era for Athens, firmly establishing the foundations of Athenian democracy. This transformation of Athens, from an insignificant city-state into a beacon of democracy, is a testament to the enduring human struggle for freedom and self-determination. It serves as a reminder that even amidst the tumultuous currents of history, moments of extraordinary vision and courage can reshape the destiny of nations. Chapter 6. The Great Migration. The rapid spread of the Greeks throughout the Mediterranean was crucial to their history. This Great Migration, spurred by the Dorian invasion, saw Greeks establish colonies across the Aegean and beyond. These colonies became vital centers of culture, exceeding even their mother cities in wealth and artistry. Let us examine the key aspects and destinations of this sprawling migration. Causes and ways. The Dorian invasion was the primary catalyst for this mass movement of people. Defeated populations fled, while victors encouraged their exodus to solidify their gains. The new settlements formed by the fleeing Greeks would become vital links in a burgeoning commercial empire that would form the foundation of Greek civilization. The Ionian Cyclades. The Cyclades, a group of islands in the Aegean Sea, were colonized by both Ionians and Dorians. This region, known for its challenging terrain, forced the Greeks to adapt and innovate in agriculture. The Dorian overflow. Dorians, after establishing themselves in the Peloponnesus, continued their expansion, venturing into the Cyclades and conquering Crete and Cyrene. Miletus and the birth of Greek philosophy. Among the Ionian cities, Miletus stood out, reaching its zenith in the 6th century BC as the wealthiest city in the Greek world. Miletus, a melting pot of cultures and a crossroads for trade, provided fertile ground for intellectual discourse. It was here that Greek philosophy emerged, seeking rational explanations for the world and man's place within it. Thinkers like Thales, considered the father of philosophy, emerged, proposing water as the fundamental element of existence. Thales famously declared that the most unfortunate of men is he who has not learned how to bear misfortune. Chios, Smyrna, Phocaea. Chios, rumored to be Homer's birthplace, gained notoriety for its wine production and its significant slave trade. Smyrna, strategically located on a well-protected inlet, endured a turbulent history of destruction and rebuilding. Phocaea, positioned to benefit from trade with Lydia, produced adventurous merchants who established Greek settlements as far west as Corsica, including the city of Marseille. The Great Migration was a defining chapter in Greek history, laying the groundwork for the flourishing of Greek civilization. Chapter 7. The Greeks in the West. The Sybarites. Sybaris, strategically positioned on a trade route, grew wealthy and its citizens became known for their luxurious lifestyles. Their indulgence, however, ultimately contributed to their downfall when they were defeated by the neighboring city of Crotona in 510 BC. All physical labor was performed by slaves while the citizens, dressed in costly robes, took their ease in luxurious homes and consumed exotic delicacies. Pythagoras of Crotona. Crotona, known for its athletes and renowned medical school, became home to Pythagoras, a philosopher and mathematician who impacted Western thought. He established a school with strict rules, emphasizing communal living, abstinence, and the pursuit of knowledge through mathematics, astronomy, and music. Pythagoras is credited with significant contributions to geometry, including the famous theorem about right-angled triangles. Ultimately, it was Pythagorean society's entanglement with politics that led to its downfall. Xenophanes of Elea. Xenophanes, a philosopher and poet, challenged traditional religious views and critiqued the anthropomorphic portrayal of gods in Homer and Hesiod. He proposed the concept of a single supreme god, distinct from the human form. There never was, nor ever will be, any man who knows with certainty the things about the gods. Mortals fancy that gods are born, and wear clothes, and have voice and form like themselves. Yet if oxen and lions had hands, and could paint and fashion images as men do, they would make the pictures and images of their gods in their own likeness. Horses would make them like horses, oxen like oxen. From Italy to Spain, the expansion of Greek settlements beyond Italy. The cities of Poseidonia, Cumae, and Neapolis played a role in facilitating trade and transmitting Greek culture. The Phocaeans, originating from Ionia, established Massalia, Marseille, in southern France, introducing the olive and the vine to the region and paving the way for the spread of Greek influence. They further ventured into Spain, establishing trading posts and exploiting silver mines, but their presence was eventually challenged by Carthaginian and Etruscan forces. The Greeks in Africa. The Greeks extended their reach to Africa, establishing Cyrene, a city known for its trade in wool, hides, and the valuable silphium spice. Within Egypt, they established a trading post at Naucratis, which flourished under pharaohs Psamtik I and Ahmose II. Naucratis became a conduit for the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural influences between Greece and Egypt, setting the stage for Greek involvement in Egyptian affairs during the Alexandrian period. Chapter 8: The Gods of Greece. The Sources of Polytheism. The Greeks, much like other ancient peoples, found themselves naturally drifting towards polytheism. This tendency was strengthened by the fragmented nature of their city-states. In the early days, every family had its own god. To him the divine fire burned unextinguished at the hearth, and to him offerings of food and wine were made before every meal. This localized worship fostered a rich tapestry of gods and goddesses, reflecting the diverse beliefs and practices across the Greek world. An inventory of the gods. Sky gods. Zeus, the cloud-compelling king of the gods, reigned supreme, while Helios, the sun god, remained a lesser deity, despite his importance in a sun-drenched land. Earth gods. Gaia, the earth itself, was venerated as a nurturing mother figure. Countless other deities inhabited the earth, rivers, and skies, from nymphs to satyrs. Fertility gods. The Greeks, like many agricultural societies, held fertility in high regard. Symbols like the phallus featured prominently in rituals, representing the life-giving power of reproduction. Subterranean gods. Dwelling in the shadowy underworld were the Chthonian deities, figures of fear and awe. Hades, ruler of the underworld, and Hecate, bringer of misfortune, were among the most prominent of these darker deities. Ancestor and hero gods. Honoring the dead was ingrained in Greek culture. Great men and women could be elevated to divine status after death. The Olympians. Over time, the 12 Olympian gods, led by Zeus, rose to prominence, reflecting the ascendancy of new tribes and political structures. This shift did not erase the older deities, but rather integrated them into a new hierarchy. Zeus, initially a god of storms in the sky, evolved into the embodiment of order and justice, presiding over the Olympian pantheon. His children, including the wise Athena, the radiant Apollo, and the fierce Ares, became central figures in Greek mythology. Worship. Greek religion was deeply integrated into everyday life. Priests, often chosen by the state, performed rituals and sacrifices to appease or seek favor from the gods. Temples, considered the homes of the deities, housed their statues and served as centers of worship. Superstitions. Despite the grandeur of the Olympians, everyday life for many Greeks was imbued with superstitions and fear of malevolent spirits. Belief in curses, evil eyes, and the need for purification rituals was widespread. The simpler Greeks believed, or taught their children to believe, in a great variety of bogies. Whole cities were disturbed at short intervals by portents or strange occurrences, like deformed births of animals or men. Oracles. Seeking guidance from the gods, Greeks consulted oracles like the renowned oracle of Apollo at Delphi. The Pythia, who inhaled intoxicating gases and entered a trance-like state, were sought by individuals and city-states for divine counsel. Festivals. Festivals provided a vibrant counterpoint to the routines of daily life. Religious calendars overflowed with celebrations honoring various gods and goddesses. These events, often funded by the state, offered a mix of religious observance, athletic competitions, and theatrical performances. Religion and morals. While not explicitly focused on moral codes, Greek religion played a significant role in shaping ethical behavior. The gods, though not always paragons of virtue themselves, reinforced social order. Honoring the dead strengthened family bonds, and rituals, however symbolic, promoted a sense of moral responsibility. As Greek philosophy developed, it began to challenge traditional beliefs, ultimately leading to a decline in the influence of Greek religion. Chapter 9: The Common Culture of Early Greece. The Greek city-states, though fiercely independent and frequently at odds, were bound together by a common culture. This shared heritage, blossoming in the 6th century BC, provided the bedrock for the achievements of the coming Golden Age. The individualism of the state. The geographical landscape of Greece, fragmented by mountains and sea, naturally fostered independent city-states. This political fragmentation was not solely determined by geography. Rivalries between cities on the same plane were as intense as those separated by great distances. Letters, a shared language, further unified the Greeks. Despite regional dialects, a common tongue emerged by the 5th and 4th centuries BC, primarily derived from Athenian Greek. This noble tongue, capable of both the many-billowed surge of Homer and the placid flow of Plato, provided a common medium for the flowering of Greek literature. The adoption of the Phoenician alphabet, modified by the innovative addition of vowels, facilitated widespread literacy and the dissemination of knowledge. Games. The Greeks' passion for athletics found its ultimate expression in the Panhellenic Games. These grand festivals, held at Olympia, Delphi, Corinth, and Nemea, drew competitors and spectators from across the Greek world, transcending political rivalries in a shared celebration of physical prowess. Alexander, who could see Greece from without, considered Olympia the capital of the Greek world. The games provided a stage for the display of physical perfection, inspiring artists in their pursuit of the ideal human form. Retrospect. The 6th century BC witnessed a remarkable flourishing of Greek culture. It was an age of creativity and innovation, laying the groundwork for the political and artistic triumphs of the 5th century. The seeds of Greek democracy, sown in the fertile ground of political experimentation, were poised to blossom in the coming decades. The stage was set for the dazzling achievements of the Golden Age. Chapter 10. The Struggle for Freedom. This chapter recounts the monumental clash between the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states. Marathon, 490 BCE. The first significant clash occurred at Marathon, sparked by Athenian support for the Ionian revolt against Persian rule. Heavily outnumbered, the Athenians achieved an astonishing victory against Darius I's forces. This victory showcased the potential for Greek resistance against Persia. As the sources state, the Persians were brave, but they were accustomed to individual fighting and were not trained for the mass defense and attack of the Greeks. Xerxes I, Darius' successor, who, driven by filial duty and imperial ambition, launched a massive invasion of Greece. Xerxes' campaign, meticulous in its preparation, assembled an enormous multicultural army, described as the largest ever seen at that time. Salamis, 480 BCE. The naval battle of Salamis. Outnumbered by the Persian fleet, Xerxes, the Greek city-states, led by Themistocles, faced seemingly insurmountable odds. Themistocles lured the Persian fleet into the narrow straits of Salamis. The ensuing battle ended in a decisive Greek victory, crippling Persian naval power and ultimately saving Greece from conquest. This victory was won not just by military prowess, but by Themistocles' strategic brilliance. He tricked Xerxes into believing the Greeks would flee, leading the Persians to trap themselves. Chapter 11. The Democratic Experiment. The Rise of Athens. Athens ascended to prominence in the Aegean world following the Greco-Persian Wars. Having led the Greek resistance against Persia, Athens earned the allegiance of many Aegean cities and formed the Delian Confederacy for mutual protection. Contributing ships rather than money to the Confederacy, Athens, using its all-powerful navy, quickly established control over its allies, transforming the Confederacy into what was effectively an Athenian empire. This shift from alliance to empire was spearheaded by Athenian statesmen, including Themistocles, who recognized the strategic importance of naval power and trade. He stated, "The road to supremacy lay not on land but on the sea, and not by war so much as by trade." Under his guidance, Athens constructed fortifications and port facilities at the Piraeus, laying the groundwork for its maritime dominance. Pericles, born into an Athenian aristocratic family around 495 BC, was a man of remarkable intellect and integrity. He received an extensive education in music, literature, and philosophy, studying under prominent figures like Damon, Zeno the Eleatic, and Anaxagoras. Recognizing the changing political landscape of Athens, he aligned himself with the democratic faction and quickly rose to prominence. His contemporaries, even those who opposed him politically, recognized his exceptional character and referred to him as the Olympian due to his powerful and eloquent oratory. Unlike the self-serving Themistocles, Pericles remained financially incorruptible throughout his political career, demonstrating his commitment to the welfare of Athens. His leadership, characterized by a blend of democratic ideals and aristocratic pragmatism, guided Athens through a period of unparalleled prosperity and cultural achievement. Athenian democracy. The Athenian democracy under Pericles, while appearing as a dictatorship to outsiders, was in reality a system of limited democracy. The limitations stemmed from various factors. Only a small percentage of the population was literate. Physically attending the assembly was difficult for citizens residing far from Athens, and the franchise was limited to a small group of male citizens over 21 years of age born of Athenian parents. This meant that within a population of 315,000 in Attica, only 43,000 held the franchise, excluding slaves, women, most working men, and resident aliens. Political life in Athens centered around the assembly, or ecclesia, where every Athenian citizen could participate directly in the governance of the city. To ensure that participation was not limited to the wealthy, Pericles instituted a system of payment for jury service, making it possible for citizens of all economic backgrounds to participate in the legal process. However, this system, while promoting wider participation, drew criticism from those like Plato, Aristotle, and Plutarch, who believed it led to a decline in Athenian character. Administration. The Athenian system of governance relied heavily on the principle of direct democracy, with most administrative positions filled by lottery rather than election. The Athenians, distrustful of expertise in governance, believed this system, with its annual rotation of officials, would prevent any individual or group from accumulating excessive power. However, recognizing the importance of military leadership, Athens deviated from the lottery system in the selection of its 10 strategoi, or generals, who were elected by the assembly based on merit and experience. Financially, Athens relied on a combination of taxes, duties, levies, and tributes from its empire. Public services were often expected from wealthy citizens, who would finance projects like equipping embassies, outfitting ships for the navy, or funding public festivals. Chapter 12. Work and Wealth in Athens. Let us examine the key elements of the Athenian economy: land and food. Athenians diligently utilized techniques like irrigation, fertilization, and crop rotation to supplement their grain production. Athenians cultivated olives and grapes, with olive oil becoming a particularly valuable export. Figs, another staple of the Athenian diet, were cultivated using the technique of caprification learned from the East. Livestock played a limited role in food production, with pigs being the primary source of meat. Fish, both fresh and preserved, was another important part of the Athenian diet. Trade, therefore, was essential to feed the Athenian population, freemen and slaves. Citizens, foreign residents, freed slaves, and slaves all contributed to the city's economic life. Foreign residents, often possessing valuable skills, dominated industries like ceramics and played a crucial role as middlemen. Freedmen, many of whom had experience as slaves, were highly sought after as overseers and executives. However, the foundation of the Athenian workforce was the 115,000 slaves, primarily foreigners, who labored in homes, mines, and various industries. While Athenian slavery was considered relatively mild compared to other Greek states, it was nonetheless a system built upon the exploitation of forced labor, industry. Though not as dominant as agriculture and trade, Athenian industry was diverse and specialized. Mining, particularly for silver at Laurium, was a major source of revenue for the Athenian state. The mines at Laurium were considered a fountain of running silver for Athens. The silver mines, however, relied entirely on slave labor under brutal conditions. Other industries included quarrying, pottery, textiles, and a wide array of crafts catering to the needs of a growing urban population. Workshops, often employing slaves alongside medics and freedmen, produced goods for local consumption and export. Trade and finance. Trade was the lifeblood of the Athenian economy. While challenging, land-based trade connected Athens to the wider Greek world. Sea trade, particularly during the calmer summer months, was more efficient, with larger vessels like triremes capable of carrying substantial cargo. A standardized and reliable Athenian coinage, the silver drachma, facilitated trade and became widely accepted throughout the Mediterranean, displacing less stable local currencies. To further support trade, banks emerged, offering deposit and loan services, with interest rates reflecting the risks involved. The War of the Classes. The growth of wealth, however, did not reach all Athenians equally. While no rigid caste system existed, a growing divide emerged between the wealthy citizens, who profited from land ownership and industry, and the poorer citizens, who relied on wages and struggled to maintain their economic footing. It is true that the state comes to the poor man's relief in times of great stress, and then distributes corn at a nominal price. But the goddess of liberty is no friend to the goddess of equality. And that under the free laws of Athens, the strong grow stronger, the rich richer, while the poor remain poor. This structuring led to increasing social and political tensions, with radicals demanding debt cancellation and land redistribution amongst citizens. Adding to this volatile mix was the rise of a new class of wealthy merchants and manufacturers who challenged the dominance of the old landed aristocracy, leading to alliances and social climbing through marriage. This war of the classes played out in the assembly, in literature, and occasionally erupted in violence, as witnessed in cities like Samos and Corcyra. Athens managed to avoid the more extreme forms of social upheaval witnessed elsewhere in the Greek world. Through a combination of social welfare programs like grain distribution during times of hardship and economic regulation, the Athenian state sought to mitigate the worst excesses of inequality and prevent radical revolution. By balancing economic individualism with socialistic measures, Athens created an environment where wealth could be generated and enjoyed, but also where the basic needs of its citizens, especially the poorest, were met. This, Will Durant believes, was a crucial factor in Athens' extraordinary cultural flourishing. Chapter 13. The Morals and Manners of the Athenians. Childhood in Athens. In the bustling city of Athens, children were highly valued. Citizens were expected to have children, with societal pressures encouraging adoption for those without biological offspring. However, this reverence for life was tempered by pragmatism. Infanticide, often targeting girls due to the financial burden of dowries, was a reality, seen as a means of population control and safeguarding family lands. This practice was viewed as a necessary measure for the well-being of the polis. It was even condoned by philosophers, with Plato advocating for the exposure of feeble children. Education, shaping young minds. Athenian education, unlike its Spartan counterpart, was deeply intertwined with the city's spirit of individual competition. Athens lacked a system of public schools, relying instead on private endeavors. Plato advocated for state-run education, but the prevailing sentiment favored the impetus of competition. Plato advocates state schools, but Athens seems to believe that even in education, competition will produce the best results. Formal education commenced around the age of 6. Boys, escorted by slaves known as pedagogos, attended private schools where they delved into the core subjects of writing, music, and gymnastics. Upon reaching 16, Athenian youths embarked on a transformative 2-year period as Ephiboy. This period served as a bridge between boyhood and full citizenship, instilling in the young men a profound sense of civic duty and military preparedness. They swore an oath, a testament to their commitment. I will not disgrace the sacred arms, nor will I abandon the man next to me, whoever he may be. I will bring aid to the ritual of the state. I will transmit my native commonwealth not lessened, but larger and better than I have received it. Athenian appearance and adornment. Athenian citizens of the 5th century BC, contrary to romanticized portrayals, were not all sculpted Adonises. Literary accounts described men of average height, robust physique, and adorned with beards, a far cry from the idealized forms immortalized in sculpture. Women too did not always embody the graceful figures depicted on vases and stelae. Like their counterparts throughout history, they employed various means to enhance their appearance, from high cork soles to padded garments and cosmetics. Both sexes were known to use perfumes, with men sometimes resorting to hair dye to achieve a fashionable blonde or conceal graying strands. Athenian men initially favored long hair, often braided, but post-marathon a shift occurred, with shorter hairstyles gaining prominence. This seemingly minor detail speaks volumes about the influence of historical events on societal norms and aesthetics. A glimpse into Athenian morality. Athenian morality was complex and often at odds with modern sensibilities. While renowned for their system of legal justice, their ethical compass in interpersonal dealings differed significantly from the altruism often espoused in philosophical discourse. Honesty was not always considered a virtue, with deceit and cunning viewed as acceptable, even commendable tools in certain contexts, especially when dealing with adversaries. The Greek might admit that honesty is the best policy, but he tries everything else first. Athenian society, while intellectually vibrant, grappled with issues of dishonesty and corruption, particularly within the realms of commerce and politics. Retailers were notorious for adulterating goods, manipulating scales, and resorting to falsehoods. Such practices, while condemned in principle, appear to have been widespread, suggesting a gap between idealized pronouncements and the realities of everyday life. Athenian life, a glimpse into the soul of a city. Character, a contradictory spirit. The Athenians, for all their brilliance, were a fascinating paradox of virtues and vices. It's easy to idealize them, but it's crucial to remember that they were products of their time, shaped by the currents of their culture. Their energy was infectious, their minds constantly buzzing with new ideas and pursuits. Perhaps it was this very dynamism, this relentless pursuit of life in all its forms, that led to the contradictions we observe. While they valued honesty in principle, they often seemed more enamored with cleverness, practicality, and self-interest. They were known to be shrewd negotiators, unyielding in their pride, and quick to engage in disputes, whether on the battlefield or in the marketplace. They possessed a certain candid vanity, readily proclaiming their superiority in various domains. This lack of false modesty might seem jarring today, but it reflects their deep-seated belief in the exceptional nature of their city and its achievements. The Athenian approach to relationships, premarital relations. The Athenian perspective on sexuality differed significantly from the norms of many later societies. While premarital chastity was expected of respectable women, men enjoyed a far greater degree of freedom. The city's numerous religious festivals, often characterized by a loosening of social constraints, served as outlets for natural impulses. The great festivals, though religious in origin, are used as safety valves for the natural promiscuity of humanity. Sexual license on such occasions is condoned in the belief that monogamy may be more easily achieved during the balance of the year. Prostitution was not only acknowledged but also regulated and taxed by the Athenian state. Within this system existed a hierarchy, from the readily available pornai of the Piraeus to the more exclusive hetairai, some of whom gained renown for their wit, education, and even philosophical acumen. A different kind of bond, Greek friendship. One of the most intriguing and to modern eyes perplexing aspects of Athenian society was the acceptance of same-sex relationships, particularly between men and youths. While courtesans might rail against this practice, it was a widely acknowledged aspect of Athenian life. The chief rivals of the hetaira are the boys of Athens, and the courtesans, scandalized to the very depths of their pockets, never tire of denouncing the immorality of homosexual love. This acceptance, however, was not universal throughout Greece. Athens appears to have been more tolerant than some other city-states. Sparta, for instance, viewed such relationships as potentially beneficial for military cohesion. Sources offer various explanations for this phenomenon, from anxieties about overpopulation to the societal segregation of women, which limited opportunities for interaction between the sexes. Love and marriage in Athens. While romantic love existed in the Athenian imagination, as evidenced by myths, poetry, and plays, it rarely formed the foundation for marriage. Marriage, more often than not, was a pragmatic arrangement orchestrated by families to ensure lineage and financial security. Dowries played a significant role in these unions, with the woman's family providing a financial contribution to the marriage. Normally, marriage is arranged by the parents, as in always classic France, or by professional matchmakers, with an eye not to love, but to dowries. Men were expected to marry, but the sources suggest that many delayed this commitment as long as possible. The ideal wife was young and fertile, capable of bearing legitimate heirs. It's worth noting that the Athenian system, much like that of ancient Rome, permitted men to take concubines. The role of women. The position of women in Athenian society stands in stark contrast to the freedoms enjoyed by men. While their Spartan counterparts experienced greater autonomy, Athenian women lived largely secluded lives, confined to the domestic sphere. They were generally excluded from public life and denied opportunities for education and intellectual pursuits beyond those deemed essential for managing a household. As surprising as anything else in this civilization is the fact that it is brilliant without the aid or stimulus of women. Facing the inevitable old age. The Athenians, known for their embrace of life's pleasures, viewed old age with a mixture of dread and resignation. The decline of the body, the waning of physical vigor, stood in stark contrast to their ideals of youthful energy and mental acuity. While Athenian society often favored the dynamism of youth over the wisdom of age, respect for elders remained a deeply ingrained value. Laws mandated that children care for their aging parents, and societal expectations reinforced these obligations. Confronting mortality, death, and burial. Athenian customs surrounding death and burial were steeped in tradition, reflecting a deep-seated belief in the afterlife and the importance of honoring the dead. Both burial and cremation were practiced, with burial regaining prominence in the classical period. The body must be buried or burned, else the soul will wander restlessly about the world. The process was elaborate, involving ritual cleansing, adornment of the body, and a funeral procession marked by wailing and lamentation. Mourners would offer food and wine at the tomb, sustaining the departed soul in its journey through the underworld. These rituals provided comfort to the living and ensured that the dead, an integral part of the Athenian worldview, were remembered and venerated. Chapter 14. The Art of Periclean Greece. The Ornamentation of Life. The Greeks believed that beauty should be an integral part of everyday life. It is beautiful, says a character in Xenophon's O Economicus, to see the footgear ranged in a row according to its kind, beautiful to see garments sorted according to their use, and coverlets, beautiful to see glass vases and tableware so sorted, and beautiful too, despite the jeers of the witless and flippant, to see cooking pots arranged with sense and symmetry. Yes, all things without exception, because of symmetry, will appear more beautiful when placed in order. The Greeks sought to integrate beauty into the practical aspects of their lives, believing that even the most utilitarian objects could be elevated through thoughtful design and arrangement. This dedication to beauty extended to personal adornment and the crafting of exquisite objects. Skilled gem cutters and engravers, using simple bronze tools, created works of astonishing detail. Even mirrors, by their nature merely reflective surfaces, were transformed into objects of beauty, elaborately engraved and supported by figures of women or gods. The masters of sculpture. Sculpture embodied the Greek love of form. The 5th century marked a turning point in Greek sculpture, as artists moved away from the stiff, frontal poses of the archaic period towards more dynamic and lifelike representations of the human form. This period also saw the flourishing of distinct sculptural schools, each with its own approach to form and style. The Peloponnesian school, with masters like Polyclitus of Argos, championed a canon of proportions that emphasized strength and masculinity. Polyclitus, much like the philosopher Pythagoras who sought universal principles in mathematics, believed in a precise mathematical formula for achieving perfect proportions in the human form. The Attic school, centered in Athens, brought a softer touch to Greek sculpture, emphasizing grace, elegance, and emotional resonance. Towering above them all stood Phidias, whose work on the Parthenon established him as the most renowned sculptor of his age. Trained as a painter, Phidias brought a unique sensibility to his sculptural work, evident in the harmonious composition and lifelike qualities of his figures. the builders. The 5th century was the age of construction in Greece, driven by both civic pride and religious fervor. Cities competed to erect grand temples, pushing the boundaries of architectural design and demonstrating their prosperity through monumental projects. While the Doric order, known for its simplicity and strength, continued to dominate Greek architecture, the 5th century witnessed a growing influence of the Ionic order, particularly in Attica. Chapter 15. The Advancement of Learning in Periclean Greece. The cultural zenith of Periclean Greece manifested in 3 primary forms: art, drama, and philosophy. While religion served as the wellspring of artistic inspiration and the arena for dramatic exploration, it ultimately became the subject of philosophical scrutiny and, in some instances, a casualty of intellectual progress. Although not always outwardly apparent, a subtle conflict simmered between religious dogma and the burgeoning current of secular thought. This conflict, a defining characteristic of the era, was exemplified by the trials of individuals such as Anaxagoras, Aspasia, Diagoras of Melos, Euripides, and Socrates, who dared to challenge conventional religious beliefs, the realm of numbers, where philosophy met mathematics. In the context of 5th century Greece, pure science functioned as an adjunct to philosophy, studied and advanced by individuals who identified more as philosophers than scientists. Higher mathematics, in their view, provided a pathway not to practical applications but to logical reasoning, striving to construct an abstract intellectual realm rather than merely conquer the physical world. The challenges of early arithmetic. Before the advent of the Periclean era, the Greeks grappled with a rudimentary and cumbersome arithmetic system. The absence of a symbol for zero posed a significant limitation. For instance, numbers like 10, 100, and 1000 were represented by the first letter of their corresponding Greek words. Geometry's allure. Greek philosophers found themselves captivated by geometry, not primarily for its practical implications, but for its inherent theoretical elegance. They were particularly drawn to 3 classic problems: squaring the circle, trisecting the angle, and doubling the cube. Aristophanes, in his play, The Birds, humorously captures the widespread fascination with squaring the circle. From mathematics to art, the Greek fascination with geometry extended beyond the realm of pure mathematics, finding expression in various art forms. Geometric principles influenced ceramic designs, architectural ornamentation, and even dictated the proportions and curves of iconic structures like the Parthenon. Anaxagoras, unveiling the cosmos and incurring Athenian wrath. The exploration of the cosmos, despite legal constraints in Athens, flourished in other corners of the Greek world. Empedocles, based in Achrogos, proposed that light travels at a finite speed. Parmenides, from Elea, posited the Earth's spherical nature and observed the moon's illumination by the sun. Democritus, a student of Babylonian astronomy, described the Milky Way as a collection of distant stars. He also proposed a cyclical model of cosmic creation and destruction involving an infinite number of worlds. It was Democritus, along with his teacher Leucippus, who put forward the groundbreaking idea of atoms as the fundamental building blocks of matter. During this time, an astronomer by the name Anaxagoras attempted to provide natural explanations for events traditionally attributed to divine intervention. This brought him into direct conflict with Athenian authorities. His rational explanation of meteors and his dissection of a peculiarly formed ram, revealing the natural cause behind what was perceived as a supernatural omen, ultimately led to his indictment for impiety. The price of scientific inquiry. Accused of disrespecting the gods by describing the sun as a fiery rock. Anaxagoras, despite Pericles' spirited defense, was forced to flee Athens to escape a death sentence. Hippocrates, the rise of rational medicine. A shift from temple healing to secular practices. Greek medicine during the 5th century, while steeped in religious tradition, witnessed the emergence of rational medicine, challenging the long-held practices of temple priests dedicated to Asclepius. Secular physicians, known as Asclepiads, rejected mystical cures and sought to ground medicine in reason and observation. Centers of medical learning. 4 prominent medical schools emerged: Cos and Nidus in Asia Minor, Crotona in Italy, and an unnamed school in Sicily. These schools, while sometimes engaging in heated debates over methodology, collectively advanced the understanding and practice of medicine. Agamemnon of Crete, a pioneering figure. Agamemnon of Crete, a product of the Pythagorean school, is often hailed as a foundational figure in Greek medicine. He dissected animals, offered insights into the physiology of sleep, recognized the brain's central role in cognitive function, and defined health as a harmonious balance within the body. Hippocrates, a legacy marred by uncertainty. Hippocrates of Kos, born in the same year as Democritus, emerged as the most renowned physician of his era. He advocated for diet and exercise as the cornerstones of good health, a principle instilled in him by his teacher, Herodicus of Selymbria. Separating medicine from mysticism, Hippocrates and his followers sought to disentangle medicine from both religious superstition and abstract philosophical speculation. The treatise on the sacred disease exemplifies this effort by attributing epilepsy, commonly believed to be divinely caused, to natural causes. The enduring influence of the humors. One of the most influential, albeit ultimately flawed, theories to emerge from this era was the doctrine of the humors. This theory proposed that health depended on the balance of four bodily fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Imbalances, according to this view, were the root of illness. The importance of observation and environment. While the Hippocratic corpus advocates for a rational approach to medicine, it acknowledges the role of environmental factors in health and disease. Airs, waters, places, emphasizes the importance of considering climate, water quality, and geographic location in medical practice. Advances in surgery and specialization. Greek surgery, though still primarily performed by general practitioners, saw notable advancements. The Hippocratic literature describes procedures for surgical interventions on the skull and methods for treating dislocations. Archaeological findings at Epidaurus provide further evidence of specialized surgical tools and techniques. The emergence of medical ethics. Beyond technical expertise, Hippocrates underscored the importance of ethical conduct in medicine. The renowned Hippocratic Oath, while likely originating from his school rather than directly from him, reflects this commitment to ethical practice, emphasizing patient well-being, confidentiality, and the sanctity of the doctor-patient relationship. The Periclean age, despite its relatively short span, witnessed remarkable advancements in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. Chapter 16. Wherein philosophy confronts religion. This age is much like those that have come before, filled with both great thought and great disorder, but in the sheer number and scale of its ideas it knows no equal. From every quarter come challenges to tradition and morality, challenges debated with such fervor that even Athens, the heart of Greece, feared for its soul. It is within this tumultuous age that we find a multitude of thinkers, the idealists. Our story begins not in Athens but in Elea, with Parmenides, the father of metaphysics for the West. Reacting against the flux espoused by Heraclitus, Parmenides, perhaps inspired by the ancient teachings of the Hindus, arrives at a startling conclusion. One thing are thinking and being, he proclaims, suggesting that reality exists only insofar as we are conscious of it. Motion, change, beginning and end. These are but phantoms, tricks played upon us by our untrustworthy senses. Zeno, a disciple of Parmenides, demonstrated the illusory nature of plurality and motion through a series of ingenious paradoxes. These puzzles, though ultimately relying on flawed assumptions about infinity and the nature of time and space, would trouble philosophers for centuries to come. The materialists. In counterpoint to the idealists, rise the materialists. Most notably Leucippus and Democritus, who developed the concept of atoms, indivisible units that comprise all things, even the soul. Democritus, a man of prodigious intellect and wide travels, leaves behind a vast body of work encompassing not only physics, but mathematics, astronomy, medicine, music, and more. By convention, sweet is sweet, bitter is bitter, hot is hot, cold is cold, color is color, he argues. But in truth there are only atoms and the void. This void, a concept seemingly absent in earlier Pythagorean atomism, is key. It is the space within which atoms move, combine and separate according to inherent, necessary laws. For Democritus, there is no guiding hand, no divine purpose, only the ceaseless dance of atoms in the void. And yet, upon this foundation of stark materialism, Democritus erects an ethic of surprising tenderness, urging the cultivation of thought, the pursuit of knowledge, and the finding of enjoyment within oneself rather than in external things. Culture is better than riches, he reminds us. No power and no treasure can outweigh the extension of our knowledge. Empedocles, a bridge between worlds. Both idealism and materialism ring true, yet both seem incomplete. The former struggles to account for the world we experience, the latter for the life we feel within us. It is Empedocles of Archegos, a man of dazzling versatility, physician, engineer, statesman, and poet, who seeks to reconcile these seemingly disparate views. He accepts the four elements proposed by earlier thinkers but posits two fundamental forces that act upon them: love, the force of attraction and unity, and hate, the force of repulsion and division. These forces, akin to the attraction and repulsion later explored in physics, drive the endless cycle of creation and destruction, evolution and devolution that characterizes the universe. Empedocles sees a universe teeming with life, constantly evolving from simple to complex forms through the agency of love, only to be dissolved back into formless chaos by the force of hate. And although he acknowledges the limitations of human perception, he envisions a divine intelligence, a sacred and ineffable mind, flashing through the whole universe with swift thoughts. Socrates, the gadfly of Athens. Emerges Socrates, a man who embodies both the brilliance and the dangers of this burgeoning rationalism. His life is a paradox, physically unattractive yet strangely charismatic, seemingly idle yet intellectually tireless, claiming ignorance yet possessing a mind of formidable acuity. The unexamined life, he argues, is not worth living. He scorns the love of rhetoric, the willingness of other thinkers to take payment for their services, and their tendency to prioritize cleverness over truth. His goal is not to win arguments, but to pursue wisdom, however elusive it might be. He readily acknowledges his own ignorance, famously claiming to know only that he knows nothing, rejecting the physical sciences as ultimately unknowable. He focuses on ethics and politics, seeking to establish a firm foundation for morality in a world increasingly shorn of its supernatural moorings. Know thyself, he urges, believing that self-knowledge is the necessary prelude to both individual and societal virtue. Socrates' teachings, however, earn him powerful enemies. His relentless questioning is perceived as subversive, his skepticism as impiety, his association with figures like Alcibiades and Critias as evidence of anti-democratic leanings. In the end, it is the fear he engenders in the hearts of the Athenian elite that leads to his trial and execution. And yet, Socrates' death is not the end of his influence, but the beginning. Chapter 17. The Golden Age of Greek Literature. The Dionysian Theater. The grand outdoor theaters dedicated to Dionysus, like the one on the southern slope of the Acropolis, weren't mere venues. They were vibrant spaces where the soul of Greece was put on display. Imagine 15,000 spectators gathered under the open sky, their senses engulfed by poetry, music, dance, and dramatic spectacle. The plays, often funded by wealthy citizens known as choergi, tackled timeless themes of fate, man's relationship with the gods, and the clash between tradition and reason. These performances were a collective ritual, a public forum for grappling with the most profound questions that haunted the Greek imagination. Aeschylus, a man of action who fought at Marathon and Salamis, brought a similar energy to the stage. He transformed the Dionysian chant into a true play by adding a second actor, paving the way for complex dramatic interactions. His plays, like Prometheus Bound, explore the struggle between human will and destiny. He masterfully depicts the torment of Prometheus, punished for bringing fire to mankind. In the Oresteia, he explores the cyclical nature of violence and the concept of justice, transitioning from blood vengeance to the rule of law. Sophocles, unlike Aeschylus, who focused on cosmic themes, Sophocles explored the depths of human character and psychology. His Oedipus Rex, renowned for its masterful structure, lays bare the tragic downfall of a man who unknowingly kills his father and marries his mother, fulfilling a dreadful prophecy. Sophocles, though a man of faith, grappled with the problem of undeserved suffering. Euripides, a contemporary of Sophocles, Euripides marks a turning point in Greek drama. In The Trojan Women, he critiques the brutality of war through the eyes of the vanquished, a theme made even more poignant by its historical context within the Peloponnesian War. Through characters like Medea, he explores the complexities of female characters with a depth seldom seen in his predecessors. Aristophanes, while tragedy grappled with the human condition, comedy provided an outlet for social and political commentary. Aristophanes, a master of satire, used his place to critique the political figures and intellectual currents of his day. In The Knights, he lampoons the populist leader Cleon, presenting him as a power-hungry demagogue. In The Clouds, he satirizes Socrates and the Sophists, portraying them as detached intellectuals who undermine traditional values. It is debatable whether The Clouds contributed to the anti-sophistic sentiment that eventually led to Socrates' trial and execution. Through his sharp wit and often bawdy humor, Aristophanes provides an invaluable glimpse into the everyday life and anxieties of the Athenians. Aristophanes and the War. Aristophanes, though a comedic playwright, was deeply troubled by the Peloponnesian War. In plays like The Achaeans and The Peace, he satirizes the warmongering policies of leaders like Cleon, highlighting the absurdity of Greeks fighting Greeks. He longs for a return to a time of unity and prosperity, using his platform to advocate for peace and reconciliation. The Historians. Prose also found its masters during this period. Herodotus, drawing on his extensive travels, chronicled the history of Greece and its interactions with other civilizations in his histories. Through their enduring legacy, the Greeks remind us that the search for meaning and understanding is a constant in the human experience. Chapter 18. The Suicide of Greece. The story of Greece in the late 5th century BC is a tale of internal conflict and imperial overreach. The Greek world in the age of Pericles. Even as Athens reached new heights under Pericles' leadership, other Greek city-states experienced their own unique trajectories. While some, like Rhodes, thrived on commerce, others grappled with internal strife and the looming threat of Athenian dominance. The seeds of resentment towards Athenian power were sown even during this supposed golden age. The men of Achragos devote themselves wholly to luxury as if they were to die tomorrow, but they furnish their houses as if they were to live forever. How the Great War began. The Peloponnesian War, a conflict that would consume the Greek world, stemmed from a complex interplay of economic and political factors. At its heart lay the resentment of other Greek states towards Athens' growing empire and its control over the Aegean Sea. The Athenians argued that their control was essential for their survival, given their dependence on imported food. In 432 BC, Athens imposed economic sanctions on some cities revolting against it. These actions pushed Sparta to declare war. From the plague to the peace. The early years of the war saw Athens rely on its naval superiority while Sparta ravaged Attica. However, a devastating plague struck Athens in 430 BC, decimating its population and claiming the life of Pericles himself. His successors, men like the ambitious Cleon, were less patient and more ruthless. The war dragged on, marked by atrocities like the Athenian Assembly's initial decision to slaughter all the men of Mytilene after a revolt. While this order was later rescinded, it illustrated the brutal turn the war had taken. A brief respite came with the Peace of Nicias in 421 BC, but the underlying tensions remained unresolved. Alcibiades. Alcibiades, a brilliant but flawed Athenian general and politician, played a pivotal role in reigniting the conflict. Charming, wealthy, and utterly unscrupulous, he embodies the moral decline that accompanied Athens' imperial ambitions. He manipulated events to reignite hostilities with Sparta, leading to the Battle of Mantinea in 418 BC, and argued for the brutal subjugation of Melos in 416 BC, the Sicilian adventure. Driven by his imperial vision, Alcibiades persuaded Athens to launch a disastrous expedition to conquer Sicily, a move that ultimately backfired spectacularly. He argued that conquering the island would secure Athens' grain supply, weaken Sparta, and bring unimaginable wealth. However, shortly after the fleet departed, Alcibiades was accused of sacrilege and forced to flee into exile. His replacement, Nicias, proved to be an inadequate leader. The Sicilian expedition ended in total defeat for Athens in 413 BC, with Nicias executed and thousands of Athenian soldiers enslaved, the triumph of Sparta. The defeat in Sicily marked a turning point in the war. Athens, drained of resources and manpower, faced rebellion amongst its subjects and also faced a resurgent Sparta, a Sparta which was now backed by Persian gold. Yet, Athens fought on for another decade, a testament to its resilience. However, internal strife and poor leadership continued to plague it. After a series of oligarchic revolts and counter-revolutions, the Athenian fleet suffered a decisive defeat at Aegospotami in 405 BC. Lysander, the Spartan admiral, then blockaded Athens, forcing the city to surrender in 404 BC, the death of Socrates. The final tragedy of this period was the trial and execution of Socrates in 399 BC. Accused of impiety and corrupting the youth, Socrates was condemned to death by an Athenian jury. While Socrates had made enemies with his relentless questioning of Athenian values, his execution also reflects the paranoia and instability that gripped Athens following its defeat. Socrates' death marked a symbolic end to the Golden Age. Athens emerged from the war physically and spiritually spent. However, even in defeat, Athens laid the groundwork for a new flourishing of philosophy and thought. Chapter 19. Philip. The Spartan Empire, though momentarily powerful, quickly faced challenges due to its own internal strife and the consequences of its actions. While Sparta initially promised freedom to cities previously under Athenian control, they instead imposed a heavy tribute and established an aristocracy that mirrored their own. This led to widespread corruption and discontent within the new empire. Internally, Sparta struggled with the influx of wealth and the decline of its traditional values. The ruling class began indulging in private luxury while publicly upholding simplicity. Land ownership became concentrated in the hands of a few, leading to a widening gap between the rich and the poor. Aristotle noted this disparity, highlighting that some Spartans own domains of vast extent, the others have nearly nothing. All the land is in the hands of a few. Athens' second empire and the rise of economic disparity. Despite its eventual failure, Athens made one last attempt to unite Greece under its leadership, forming a second confederacy that leveraged Athens' economic power and infrastructure. This period saw a shift in Athenian society from an agrarian economy to one dominated by trade and industry. This eventually only resulted in economic inequality and political instability, with both the rich and the poor losing faith in the democratic system, moral decline, and the professionalization of warfare. The decline of traditional religious beliefs and the increasing influence of philosophical thought further eroded the social fabric of Athens. Moral restraints loosened, leading to a rise in individualism and a decline in civic responsibility. Xenophon noted this shift in societal values, criticizing the citizens' focus on personal pleasure and entertainment over the well-being of the state. This period also saw the professionalization of warfare, as complex military tactics and the need for specialized training made citizen soldiers increasingly obsolete. Consequently, the dependence on mercenaries grew, further weakening the bonds of patriotism and leading to a situation where Greeks were often pitted against one another on the battlefield. Political corruption and the rise of Philip. The political landscape of 4th century Athens was marred by corruption and instability. Politicians, particularly the rhetors who emerged as professional orators and political operatives, exploited the system for personal gain. The assembly, despite receiving payment for attendance, made critical errors that ultimately led to the downfall of Athens' Second Empire and paved the way for Philip's rise to power. Philip of Macedon, unifier and conqueror. Philip II ascended to the Macedonian throne in 359 BC, bringing with him a vision of a united Greece under Macedonian leadership. Having spent time in Thebes, Philip was exposed to Greek culture and military tactics, which he later incorporated into his own army. Philip possessed a combination of charisma, strategic genius, ruthlessness, and diplomatic cunning, making him a formidable leader. Recognizing Athens' vulnerability during the social war, Philip began expanding his influence in northern Greece, capturing cities and gaining control of valuable resources. By the time Athens realized the full extent of Philip's ambitions, it was too late. The Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC marked Philip's decisive victory, effectively ending the era of independent Greek city-states. While Philip's victory brought a semblance of unity to Greece, it was a unity achieved through conquest and the imposition of Macedonian hegemony. Demosthenes, the voice of Athenian resistance. Standing in defiance of Philip was Demosthenes, the Athenian orator whose impassioned pleas for resistance against Macedonian expansion became synonymous with the struggle for Greek independence. Born into modest circumstances, Demosthenes overcame personal and physical challenges to become one of Athens' most prominent orators. Recognizing the threat posed by Philip's growing power, he tirelessly rallied the Athenians to oppose him. Despite accusations of financial impropriety, Demosthenes' commitment to Athenian independence remained unwavering. He understood that Philip's vision of a united Greece came at the cost of Athenian freedom and the democratic ideals it represented. His efforts, however, proved futile against Philip's superior military might and the internal divisions that plagued Athens. The legacy of Philip II is complex and multifaceted. He was a ruthless conqueror who ended the political independence of the Greek city-states. Yet he also brought an end to the incessant warfare that had consumed Greece for generations. By uniting the Greek city-states under his leadership, he paved the way for Alexander's conquests and the spread of Greek culture throughout the eastern Mediterranean. Chapter 20. Letters and Arts in the 4th Century. The 4th century in Greece was a period marked by declining political power and a shift in focus from public life to private interests. This transformation was mirrored in the arts and literature of the time, the orators. The 4th century saw the rise of orators who dominated the political landscape. These individuals were masters of rhetoric, using their skills to sway public opinion and advance their political agendas. However, this period also witnessed a decline in the quality of political discourse, with orators often resorting to personal attacks and dishonest arguments. The rivalry between Aeschines and Demosthenes exemplifies this trend. In his speech, On the Crown, Demosthenes launched a scathing attack on Aeschines' character, stating, "Shall I relate how your father was a slave who kept an elementary school near the temple of Theseus, and how he wore shackles on his legs and a timber collar round his neck, or how your mother practiced daylight nuptials in an outhouse?" This demonstrates the increasingly vitriolic nature of Athenian politics in this era. Isocrates. Amidst this political turbulence, Isocrates emerged as a voice of reason and Pan-Hellenic unity. A renowned teacher of rhetoric, Isocrates believed in the power of eloquent speech to shape minds and influence political affairs. He advocated for a united Greece, capable of repelling external threats like Persia. He criticized Athenian imperialism and the decline of political leadership, arguing for a return to the timocracy of Solon and Cleisthenes. His writings, although not delivered as speeches, took the form of essays. Chapter 21. The Zenith of Philosophy. The Scientists. Compared to the rapid progress in scientific thought seen in the 5th century, the 4th century presented a period of relative stagnation. Instead of groundbreaking discoveries, this era was largely defined by the consolidation of existing knowledge. Prominent figures like Xenocrates, Theophrastus, Minoan, and Eudemus dedicated themselves to documenting the accumulated wisdom in their respective fields. Despite this general trend, mathematics found a unique champion in Plato. Plato regarded arithmetic and geometry not as practical tools for measuring the physical world, but as abstract disciplines that could unlock the secrets of pure reason and provide a glimpse into the divine mind. He went as far as to criticize scholars like Eudoxus for conducting experiments in mechanics, believing that such practical applications tainted the purity of geometry. Nevertheless, Plato's emphasis on mathematics in the Academy's curriculum played a crucial role in nurturing the talents of mathematicians. Amidst this backdrop of theoretical exploration, figures like Archytas of Terras emerged, embodying a blend of political acumen and scientific curiosity. While serving as a successful statesman, Archytas also made significant contributions to the fields of mathematics and mechanics, developing theories of musical harmony, solving the problem of doubling the cube, and even authoring the first known treatise on mechanics, the Socratic schools. The death of Socrates cast a long shadow over Athenian intellectual life, giving rise to a multitude of philosophical schools that drew inspiration from his teachings. 1. Aristippus. Aristippus, a man of refined tastes and worldly experience, established the Cyrenaic school of philosophy in his hometown of Cyrene, a city known for its affluence and cosmopolitan atmosphere. His philosophy was a straightforward embrace of hedonism, arguing that the pursuit of pleasure was the ultimate goal of life. He believed that pleasure, particularly of the physical and sensual kind, offered the most certain and immediate form of happiness. Aristippus claimed that true mastery over pleasure lay not in abstinence but in the ability to enjoy it without becoming enslaved by it. Despite this seemingly scandalous lifestyle, Aristippus was well regarded for his wit, charm, and underlying kindness. His blunt hedonism, often delivered with a touch of irony, seemed to amuse even those who disagreed with him. 2. Diogenes. In stark contrast to Aristippus's embrace of pleasure, Antisthenes, another disciple of Socrates, advocated for a life of austere simplicity. He believed that true freedom lay in minimizing one's material needs and desires. His philosophy, characterized by a radical rejection of material possessions and social conventions, earned his followers the name Cynics. Antisthenes' teachings found their most ardent practitioner in Diogenes of Sinope, a former banker who took the pursuit of simplicity to its extreme. Diogenes embraced poverty with an almost theatrical zeal, famously making his home in a tub and reducing his possessions to the bare essentials. According to legend, Alexander the Great came to visit Diogenes. Alexander wanted to fulfill a wish for Diogenes and asked him what he desired. Diogenes replied, "Stand out of my light." Plato. Plato, hailing from an aristocratic Athenian family, stands as one of the towering figures in the history of Western philosophy. His life and work were intertwined with the political and intellectual currents of his time. The teacher. The execution of Socrates in 399 BC profoundly impacted the young Plato. Forced to flee Athens, he embarked on a period of travels that exposed him to various philosophical traditions, including the teachings of the Pythagoreans in Italy. Upon his return to Athens in 387 BC, he founded the Academy, an institution that would become a center of intellectual discourse. The Academy's curriculum encompassed a wide range of subjects, from mathematics and astronomy to law, ethics, and political philosophy. Plato believed that philosophical study should be grounded in a solid understanding of fundamental principles before engaging with more complex and potentially destabilizing ideas. The artist. While Plato's philosophical ideas are central to his legacy, his enduring influence also stems from his mastery of dialogue as a literary form. Unlike his predecessors, who primarily used dialogue as a tool for philosophical exposition, Plato transformed it into a dynamic and engaging genre that breathed life into abstract ideas. He achieved this by skillfully weaving philosophical discussions into compelling narratives, often drawing on his own experiences and the vibrant social milieu of Athens. Plato's dialogues are not without their flaws. Critics often point to their lack of structural coherence, their tendency to meander from one topic to another, and their one-sided nature. Despite these shortcomings, the dialogues remain a testament to Plato's unique ability to make philosophical inquiry both accessible and captivating. The metaphysician. At the heart of Plato's philosophical system lies his theory of ideas or forms, a concept that influenced Western thought. Plato, deeply influenced by the teachings of Socrates and his own reflections on the nature of knowledge and reality, argued that the physical world we perceive through our senses is but a pale imitation of a higher realm of perfect and eternal forms. These forms, according to Plato, are not merely mental constructs, but represent the true essence of things. They are unchanging, eternal, and provide the blueprint for everything that exists in the material world. While we can draw countless individual triangles, each with its imperfections, the form of a triangle represents the perfect and eternal geometric concept that transcends any physical representation. The same logic, he argues, applies to abstract concepts like beauty, justice, and truth. Their true essence lies not in any particular instance but in the eternal forms that exist independently of our perception. Aristotle. Aristotle, Plato's most famous student, emerged from the academy with a mind shaped by his teacher's teachings but also driven by an insatiable curiosity to observe. His intellectual legacy established him as one of the most influential thinkers in Western history. Wonder years. Following Plato's death in 347 BC, Aristotle embarked on a period of travels and intellectual exploration that would lay the foundation for his own philosophical system. He spent time in Assos, modern-day Turkey, under the patronage of Hermes, a former student of the academy. Following Hermes' assassination by the Persians, Aristotle moved to Lesbos, where he immersed himself in the study of natural history, a field that would become central to his scientific investigations. In 343 BC, Aristotle received a fateful invitation from Philip II of Macedon to serve as tutor to his son, Alexander, then a young boy of 13, the scientist. Aristotle's approach to knowledge was deeply rooted in empirical observation and a systematic approach to understanding the natural world. He famously declared, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." Unlike Plato, who often dismissed the material world as a mere shadow of a higher realm of forms, Aristotle embraced the study of nature, and his work in biology, particularly his extensive studies of marine life, animal anatomy, and embryological development, established him as a pioneer in the field. The philosopher. While deeply invested in the study of the natural world, Aristotle also grappled with profound philosophical questions about the nature of reality, knowledge, and the soul. He developed a complex metaphysical system that, while departing from Plato's theory of forms, retained a belief in a purposeful and ordered cosmos. For Aristotle, the soul was not a separate entity inhabiting the body, but rather the form or essence of a living being. He argued that the soul is inseparable from the body, and that it is the soul that animates and gives purpose to the physical form. Centuries later, a Muslim philosopher by the name of Ibn Sina pushed this study forward in his works titled A Compendium on the Soul. Its summary is available on the Millennial Philosophy channel. 4. The Statesman. Aristotle's political philosophy is rooted in his observations of Greek city-states, his experiences as a student of Plato, and also as tutor to Alexander the Great. He famously declared that man is by nature a political animal. Chapter 22. Alexander the Great, the soul of a conqueror. Alexander was a man of contradictions, driven by ambition and a thirst for knowledge, yet prone to fits of cruelty and enslaved by superstition. From his youth, he displayed a yearning for greatness, lamenting to his friends, "Father will get everything done before we are ready, and will leave me and you no chance of doing anything great and important." Tutored by Aristotle, Alexander developed an admiration for Greek culture. He famously confessed, "I feel like a demigod among savages when sitting in the company of Macedonians." His admiration for Greek culture, however, was coupled with a ruthless ambition that would see him conquer and destroy entire cities, demonstrated by his brutal treatment of the people in Gaza, modern-day Gaza Strip in Palestine. When Gaza was taken by Alexander, the male population was put to the sword and the women and children were sold into slavery. The paths of glory. Alexander's reign was marked by a series of stunning military victories that redrew the map of the ancient world. From quelling rebellions within his own empire to confronting the might of the Persian army, Alexander's campaigns took him from Greece to Egypt and deep into the heart of Asia. His conquest of Tyre, however, exposed a darker side, with the massacre of 8,000 Tyrians and the enslavement of 30,000 more. The death of a god. As Alexander's empire grew, so too did his ambition and his embrace of Oriental customs. He married Roxana, a Bactrian princess, and later, in a grand ceremony at Susa, he married Statira, daughter of Darius III, and Parysatis, daughter of Artaxerxes III. This fusion of cultures extended to his own attire and demeanor, adopting Persian dress and demanding the prostration of his officers. This cultural shift culminated in his declaration of divinity, proclaiming himself the son of Zeus Ammon. While some argue this was a calculated move to consolidate his rule over a diverse empire, his increasing arrogance and adoption of divine trappings suggest a growing disconnect from his Macedonian roots. This period was marked by growing distrust between Alexander and his troops, culminating in the tragic death of his closest companion, Hephaestion. Overwhelmed by grief and increasingly reliant on alcohol, Alexander's health deteriorated, leading to his untimely demise in Babylon at the age of 32. The end of an age. Alexander's death triggered a wave of revolts and upheavals that marked the close of an era. In Greece, Athens, led by the resurgent Demosthenes, seized the opportunity to break free from Macedonian control. Their hope for liberation was short-lived, however, as Antipater, Alexander's seasoned general, crushed the rebellion at Crete, imposing harsh terms on Athens and forcing Demosthenes to take his own life. This final act signaled the demise not only of Athenian democracy but of the Greek city-state system itself. Alexander's conquest, while marking the end of an era, also paved the way for the Hellenistic period, spreading Greek culture eastward and creating a new world order. Chapter 23: Greece and Macedon. With the death of Alexander, Greek civilization entered a new phase, a period that saw its spirit spread across Asia and Egypt. This period was marked by great turmoil as power, wealth, and even the very moral fabric of Greek society underwent a process of dramatic transformation. Let us examine these forces in more detail. The struggle for power. Following Alexander, his successors, the Diadochi, carved up his vast empire amongst themselves. This led to a period of almost incessant warfare as these rulers jostled for dominance. The struggle for wealth. Beyond the battlefields, another struggle was taking place, the struggle for wealth. The rise of large estates worked by slave labor, a practice that became increasingly common, led to a concentration of wealth in the hands of a few. This concentration of wealth is evident in the fact that by 244 BC, a mere 100 families owned the majority of the land. While commerce flourished in new centers like Rhodes and Alexandria, older cities, particularly those on the Greek mainland, saw their economic fortunes decline, the morals of decay. The old certainties, both political and religious, were crumbling, leading to a sense of moral decay. The old gods, once seen as protectors of the city-states, had failed to prevent their decline, leading many to question their relevance. This period was also marked by a decline in traditional morality. Sexual mores loosened, and practices like infanticide and abortion became increasingly common as families sought to limit their size in the face of economic hardship. Revolution in Sparta. Sparta, long considered the epitome of Greek discipline and military prowess, did not escape these tumultuous changes. The once rigid social structure that emphasized equality among Spartan citizens had given way to a system where wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few. This led to social unrest and ultimately to attempts at revolution. Kings Augustus IV and later Cleomenes III both attempted to implement land reforms and redistribute wealth in a bid to address the growing social inequality. While these attempts ultimately failed, they highlight the profound sense of discontent and the yearning for a return to a more egalitarian past. The ascendancy of Rhodes. Amidst the chaos and upheaval, the island of Rhodes emerged as a beacon of civilization and prosperity. Benefiting from its strategic location and a reputation for honesty and fair dealing, Rhodes became a major commercial hub, its harbor bustling with ships from all corners of the Hellenistic world. Even when disaster struck in the form of a devastating earthquake in 225 BC, the Rhodians, with their characteristic resilience, not only rebuilt their city, but did so with the help of fellow Greeks, demonstrating the enduring power of Hellenic solidarity. The story of Rhodes, with its emphasis on commerce and good governance, offers a glimpse into what might have been had the Greek world been able to overcome its internal divisions. Chapter 24: Hellenism's Spread and the East's Resilience. The Hellenistic Age, one that speaks not of decline but of the dissemination of Greek civilization. This era saw the rise of new powers, the flourishing of old ones, and the complex interplay of Greek and Eastern cultures. The Seleucid Empire. From the remnants of Alexander's vast empire arose the Seleucid Empire, a realm forged by the ambition and cunning of Seleucus Nicator. Seleucus, a man whose character was as complex as the empire he built, famously ceded his wife, Stratonis, to his son Demetrius, upon learning that the young man was consumed with love for her. The Seleucid Empire encompassed the ancient lands of Elam, Samaria, Persia, Babylonia, Assyria, Syria, Phoenicia, and, intermittently, Asia Minor and Palestine. Seleucia and Antioch, its magnificent capitals, outshone even the grandest cities of mainland Greece in wealth and population. Strategically positioned near the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, Seleucia swiftly emerged as a bustling hub for commerce between Mesopotamia, the Persian Gulf, and beyond. However, the empire's vast size proved to be both a blessing and a curse. Following Seleucus's assassination, the empire was beset by internal strife, territorial divisions, and relentless barbarian incursions. Seleucid civilization, a Greek veneer over an Eastern heart. The Seleucid Empire played a crucial role in providing the Near East with much-needed economic stability and order, a continuity of the peace that had been established under the Persian Empire and would later be reimposed by Rome. This stability fostered a resurgence in Greek Asia, even as mainland Greece suffered from division and economic decline. The Seleucids, understanding that their power relied heavily on the loyalty of the Greek populace, encouraged the restoration and expansion of Greek cities across their domain. This led to a period of rapid urban development, with cities like Miletus, Ephesus, and Smyrna experiencing a renewed period of prosperity. This urban growth went hand in hand with the flourishing of commerce. The Seleucids inherited and improved upon the Persian infrastructure of roads, facilitating the movement of goods and people across vast distances. This interconnected web of trade routes spanned from the Mediterranean to India and China, with cities such as Seleucia, Antioch, and Alexandria at its heart. This period witnessed a vibrant exchange of goods, ideas, and cultural practices. However, despite the rapid spread of Greek culture, the East did not simply assimilate. Beneath the surface of this Hellenistic resurgence, the East's ancient traditions endured. The Seleucid elite might have adopted Greek customs and language, but the vast majority of the populace continued to speak their native tongues and practice their ancestral religions. This cultural resistance was most evident in Babylonia, present-day Iraq, where traditional Semitic practices in commerce and religion reasserted themselves over time. Indeed, the flow of influence between East and West was not a one-way street. Eastern mysticism, astrology, and the concept of divine monarchy gradually seeped into Greek thought, foreshadowing the future direction of both Roman and later European civilizations. In essence, the Hellenistic age sowed the seeds for the orientalization of the European soul. Pergamum, a flourishing center built on shifting sands. The decline of Seleucid power was mirrored by the rise of independent kingdoms on the periphery of the Hellenistic world, with Pergamum becoming a leading example of this trend. Pergamum declared its independence in 282 BC. Under the rule of Attalus I, Pergamum eventually controlled most of Asia Minor with Roman support. Pergamum's rulers understood the need to legitimize their power, achieved partly by positioning their city as a rival to Alexandria as a center of art and learning. The city boasted a magnificent library, second only to Alexandria's in size and scholarly reputation. Pergamon's unique economic system, in which the monarchy actively participated in commerce and industry alongside private enterprises, fueled this cultural flourishing. However, Pergamon's prosperity was ultimately short-lived. Attalus, too, fearing for the future stability of the kingdom in the hands of his heirs, made the fateful decision to sell the kingdom to Rome in 139 BC. This act, while ensuring Pergamon's survival in the short term, ultimately marked the end of its independence and foreshadowed the growing shadow of Roman dominance. Hellenism and the Jews, a clash of faiths and a struggle for identity. Caught in the crossfire between the Seleucid and Ptolemaic empires, Judea's strategic importance made it a pawn in their struggle for regional dominance. After more than a century under Ptolemaic rule, Judea got absorbed into the Seleucid Empire in 198 BC, initially welcomed by the Jews as a liberation from Egyptian control. The allure of Hellenism, with its emphasis on worldly pleasures, intellectual pursuits, and questioning of traditional beliefs, proved difficult for many, particularly the young, to resist. Within this environment, the Hasidim, a devout sect, emerged as the guardians of Jewish tradition. Their strict adherence to religious law and rejection of worldly pleasures stood in stark contrast to the increasingly Hellenized society around them. The tensions between these competing ways of life, simmering for decades, finally boiled over during the reign of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. Driven by a need to replenish his coffers and perhaps a desire to impose cultural uniformity across his fractious empire, Antiochus IV embarked on a systematic campaign to suppress Jewish practices. His decision to ban core Jewish rituals like circumcision and Sabbath observance ignited a firestorm of resistance. The brutal persecution that followed pushed many Jews towards the uncompromising stance of the Hasidim. Stories of martyrdom, such as the Jews who chose death rather than violate the Sabbath by resisting soldiers, circulated widely and solidified Jewish resolve. It was from this crucible of persecution that figures like Mattathias and his sons, including Judas Maccabeus, emerged. The Maccabean revolt, fueled by religious zeal and a yearning for freedom, caught the Seleucids off guard. Judas' string of military victories, culminating in the recapture and purification of the temple in Jerusalem in 164 BC, marked a turning point in the conflict. While initially focused on securing religious freedom, the Maccabees, perhaps emboldened by their success, expanded their aims to encompass political independence, even aligning themselves with Rome in their struggle. The death of Judas in battle in 161 BC did not extinguish the flames of rebellion. His brothers, Jonathan and Simon, carried on the fight, ultimately securing recognition of Judean independence in 142 BC under Simon's rule. This victory paved the way for the establishment of the Hasmonean dynasty, a testament to the enduring strength and resilience of the Jewish faith in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Hellenistic age, despite its outward appearance of Greek cultural dominance, ultimately fostered a more complex reality. While Greek ideas and practices undoubtedly left an indelible mark on the East, they also sparked resistance and revitalization among indigenous cultures. In the case of the Jews, the encounter with Hellenism led to a strengthening of religious identity and a renewed commitment to their ancestral traditions, ultimately setting the stage for the flourishing of Rabbinic Judaism in the centuries that followed. Chapter 25. A look at Ptolemaic Egypt in the decline of Greek rule in Sicily. The King's Register. The narrative of Ptolemaic Egypt begins with Ptolemy I, a general known for his practicality and vision. He secured his rule in Egypt and devoted himself to nurturing its agriculture, commerce, and industry. Instead of chasing dreams of boundless power like some of his contemporaries, he solidified his dominion and ensured Egypt's prosperity. This approach laid the foundation for the dynasty's enduring influence. His legacy continued with his successors, who expanded Egypt's reach and fostered cultural endeavors that would echo throughout history. However, the later Ptolemies, burdened by wars and internal strife, witnessed a decline in their rule, culminating in Egypt's absorption into the Roman Empire. Ptolemy I, in his old age, found time to write astonishingly truthful commentaries on his campaigns and established the museum and library that were to make the fame of Alexandria. socialism under the Ptolemies. Perhaps the most intriguing facet of Ptolemaic Egypt was its unique system of state socialism. Inheriting a system where pharaohs held dominion over the land, the Ptolemies expanded this practice, transforming Egypt into a meticulously managed state-run enterprise. This all-encompassing control extended over agriculture and industry, with the state dictating crops, labor, and the distribution of goods. While this system initially yielded benefits, facilitating extensive public works and economic growth, it ultimately faltered. The Ptolemies' focus on maximizing production superseded equitable distribution, leading to exploitation and a gradual decline in the system's efficacy. In the gold mines of Nubia, the slaves worked naked in dark and narrow galleries, in cramping positions, loaded with chains and encouraged by the whip of the overseer. Their food was poor, not even enough to keep them alive. Thousands of them succumbed from malnutrition and fatigue. And the only welcome event in their lives was death. The seeds of discontent sown by this exploitation eventually sprouted into widespread revolts, weakening the Ptolemaic grip on power. Alexandria. Alexandria, the crown jewel of Ptolemaic Egypt, emerged as a bustling metropolis, a testament to the dynasty's ambition and wealth. The city's planned layout, adorned with avenues and impressive architecture, reflected a modern sensibility far ahead of its time. Alexandria's allure was further enhanced by its celebrated institutions, including the renowned library and museum, which drew scholars and thinkers from across the Hellenistic world. It was a city designed for both grandeur and functionality, exemplified by features like its extensive network of illuminated streets, shaded colonnades, and the marvel of its double harbor, made possible by the impressive Heptastadian dike. This magnificent city, however, was not without its complexities. The diverse population, comprising Greeks, Egyptians, Jews, and people from various corners of the Hellenistic world, coexisted within a framework of social and economic stratification. This melting pot of cultures, while vibrant, was also a breeding ground for tensions, particularly between the ruling Greeks and the Jewish population. This friction, fueled by economic rivalry and social segregation, foreshadowed the anti-Semitism that would later plague the city. Despite these underlying tensions, Alexandria remained a beacon of intellectual and cultural exchange throughout the Hellenistic period. A testament to this vibrancy can be found in Herodotus' words. Alexandria is the house of Aphrodite, and everything is to be found there: wealth, playgrounds, a large army, a serene sky, public displays, philosophers, precious metals, fine young men, a good royal house, an academy of science, exquisite wines, and beautiful women. Revolt. The seemingly unshakable edifice of Ptolemaic rule began to crumble under the weight of its own contradictions. The very system that had fueled Egypt's prosperity became its undoing. Strikes, once a rarity, became increasingly frequent. "We are worn out," says a papyrus record of one strike. "We will run away and seek sanctuary in a temple." The Egyptians, bearing the brunt of the oppressive system, rose up against their Greek overlords. These revolts, while initially quelled, foreshadowed the dynasty's decline. Sunset in Sicily. Meanwhile, across the Mediterranean, the Greek flame that had illuminated Sicily for centuries began to flicker. The island, once a vibrant hub of Greek culture and power, found itself caught between the resurgence of native populations and the looming shadow of Rome. Syracuse, the once mighty city that had withstood Athenian might and Carthaginian aggression, was now plagued by internal strife and poor leadership. Yet, even amidst this decline, glimmers of hope emerged. Wherein, too, ascending to power in Syracuse, ushered in an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity. His reign, characterized by a rare blend of justice and benevolence, offered a stark contrast to the turmoil that had engulfed the island. Wherein ruled for 54 years, says the astonished Polybius, without killing, exiling, or injuring a single citizen, which indeed is the most remarkable of all things. On several occasions he wished to resign his authority, but the people begged him to retain it. Wherin's reign, however, proved to be a fleeting respite. His death marked the end of an era. Syracuse, under his inept successor, became embroiled in the conflict between Rome and Carthage, ultimately succumbing to Roman might. Chapter 26. Books. The Hellenistic Age, despite the decline of Athens and the rise of new empires, was a period of great intellectual and cultural activity. Greek civilization, rather than being destroyed, was dispersed, with the Greek language acting as a unifying force across the Mediterranean world. This led to a surge in book production and a need for institutions to house and manage these growing collections, libraries and scholars. While private collections had existed before, the Library of Aristotle, with its impressive size and value, marked a turning point. The most renowned libraries, however, were the royal libraries of Alexandria and Pergamum, institutions that not only housed books but also served as centers of scholarship and literary preservation. The rivalry between these institutions, particularly the competition for manuscripts, illustrates the value placed on books and learning during this time. Ptolemy III went to great lengths to acquire the original manuscripts of Athenian playwrights Sophocles and Euripides, offering a substantial sum as security and ultimately retaining the originals while sending copies back to Athens. This dedication to scholarship ensured the survival of countless literary treasures that might otherwise have been lost to history. In these libraries, scholars like Xenodotus, Aristophanes of Byzantium, and Aristarchus edited and cataloged texts, developed systems of punctuation and accents, and produced commentaries for future generations. The Books of the Jews. The Hellenistic era saw the composition of some of the most beautiful and enduring parts of the Bible. Jewish scholars worked to preserve and transmit their cultural heritage. They translated the scriptures into Aramaic to make them accessible to the wider Jewish community and established schools for the study and interpretation of the Torah. Menander and the New Comedy. In the realm of drama, tragedy continued to be written, but it was comedy that captivated Hellenistic audiences. Playwrights like Philemon and Menander excelled in this genre, focusing on themes of domesticity and social satire. Polybius and the writing of history. The Hellenistic age produced a number of important historians, most notably Polybius. As a statesman, soldier, and diplomat, Polybius brought a wealth of experience and a broad perspective to his writing. His Histories, a work covering the history of the Mediterranean world from 221 to 146 BC, is notable for its focus on Rome's rise to power. Polybius was deeply interested in the methodology of history. He believed in the importance of first-hand accounts and rigorous research. To ensure the accuracy of his account of Hannibal's invasion of Italy, Polybius retraced on foot the route that Hannibal took across the Alps. Despite a dry style, Polybius's work remains a valuable resource for understanding the Hellenistic world. The Hellenistic age, despite its political upheavals, witnessed a flourishing of literature and scholarship. Chapter 27. The Art of the Dispersion. A Miscellany. Across the expanding Greek world, from Bactria to Spain, artisans crafted pieces from wood, ivory, silver, and gold. Gem engraving and coin minting in particular reached new heights. Alexandria, a hub of this Hellenistic world, was known for its goldsmiths and silversmiths. Painting. As democracy waned and the prominence of the state diminished, individuals sought solace and fulfillment in private life. This shift led to a surge in demand for art to adorn private residences. Sculpture, from gods to mortals. The very spirit of Greece was given form in marble and bronze, populating temples, palaces, and even homes. A commentary on change. This period of artistic flourishing often faces accusations of decadence, a simplistic label that Will Durant believes fails to capture the true spirit of the age. Yes, there was a shift, a departure from the classical norms, but this was not a sign of decline, but a natural evolution. To label this period as decadent is to overlook the incredible skill, the innovative spirit, and the emotional depth present in its art. This was not a decline, but a metamorphosis. Chapter 28. The Climax of Greek Science. Geometry and Mathematics. Euclid, based in Alexandria, compiled the Elements, a masterpiece of geometrical knowledge. He presented a systematic approach to geometry, building upon the work of earlier mathematicians like Pythagoras and Hippocrates of Chios. Until the 1900s, the Elements of Euclid constituted the accepted textbook of geometry in every European university, a colossus of science. Archimedes of Syracuse famously employed mechanical experiments to further geometrical understanding. He calculated pi with superior accuracy and developed a method for expressing large numbers in his sand reckoner. His work on levers provided foundational principles of statics. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the earth. Charting the cosmos. Aristarchus of Samos, a daring mind, challenged the geocentric view of the universe. Hipparchus of Nicaea, lauded as the lover of truth, advanced astronomical observation and theory. Despite advocating for a geocentric model, his contributions were vast. He improved astronomical instruments, developed the concept of latitude and longitude for terrestrial mapping, and created the foundation for trigonometry with his table of sines. He accurately calculated the length of various astronomical cycles and estimated the moon's distance from Earth with remarkable precision. Eratosthenes of Cyrene headed the Alexandrian library. He compiled a geographical treatise, the Geographica, incorporating knowledge from explorers and surveyors. He advocated for a view of humanity that transcended national divisions, recognizing merit in individuals rather than stereotypes. Eratosthenes is perhaps most famous for his impressively accurate calculation of the Earth's circumference using the differing angles of the sun's rays, the body as territory, advances in medicine. Herophilus of Chalcedon advanced the field of anatomy through his dissections, providing detailed descriptions of the eye, brain, nerves, and reproductive system. He discovered the circulation of blood 19 centuries before William Harvey. Erasistratus described the workings of various organs, including the epiglottis, heart valves, and lacteal vessels. He stressed the interconnectedness of the body's systems and favored a preventative approach to medicine, emphasizing hygiene and a healthy lifestyle over excessive medical interventions. Chapter 29: The Surrender of Philosophy. How to live a good life in a world seemingly stripped of political agency and shaken by philosophical doubt. The rise of skepticism. Philosophers like Pyrrho of Elis cast a skeptical eye on the claims of certainty made by their predecessors. Pyrrho argued that neither our senses nor our reason could provide us with absolute truths. He stated that every reason has a corresponding reason opposed to it, highlighting the inherent ambiguity in any claim to knowledge. The consequence of this line of thinking was a retreat from grand metaphysical systems of the time. The Epicurean pursuit of pleasure. Epicurus, like Pyrrho, sought solace in a world stripped of traditional supports. However, his path led him to a philosophy centered on the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. Epicurus established a school in Athens where he advocated for a life lived, unobtrusively, guided by the principle of hedon or sweetness of life. The hedonic principle prioritized simple pleasures, friendship, and freedom from fear, particularly the fear of death and the gods. The Stoic embrace of virtue and duty. In contrast to the Epicurean focus on individual happiness, Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium, emphasized virtue and duty. This emphasis on virtue led to a stern, disciplined approach to life, marked by indifference to material possessions and external circumstances. Even in the face of personal tragedy, such as the death of a loved one, the Stoic response was to accept fate's decree with equanimity. As Cleanthes, Zeno's successor, wrote, "Lead me, O God, and thou my destiny, to that one place which you will have me fill. I follow gladly." This philosophy attracted a following among Rome's ruling class and influenced later thinkers. Chapter 30: The Rise of Rome. The story of Rome's dominance over Greece is not one of simple military conquest. It is a narrative intertwined with Greek internal strife and Roman strategic cunning. Let us examine this evolution through the lens of three key phases. 1. Pyrrhus' challenge. 2. Rome's initial guise as a liberator. 3. Its ultimate transformation into a conqueror. Pyrrhus, a taste of Greek fire. Pyrrhus, the ambitious king of Epirus, sought to establish a Greek empire to rival Alexander's. viewing a nascent Rome as a stepping stone in this grand design. His victories, however, proved to be costly, giving rise to the term Pyrrhic victory, a triumph achieved at an unsustainable price. His campaigns exposed the growing power of the Roman legions but also highlighted the strategic limitations of Greek military tactics and the lack of unity among the Greek city-states. Rome the Liberator, a calculated friendship. Rome shrewdly exploited the vulnerabilities of the fractured Greek world, presenting itself as a protector against threats such as Illyrian piracy and Macedonian expansionism. This approach resonated with many Greeks, who welcomed Rome's intervention in the First and Second Macedonian Wars. Yet, this apparent generosity masked a deeper strategy, by championing the cause of Greek autonomy while also weakening potential rivals like Macedon. Rome strategically positioned itself for future dominance. Rome the Conqueror, the mask removed. The veneer of liberation quickly faded as Rome's true intentions became evident. The gifts of freedom came at a steep price: heavy indemnities, the plunder of Greek treasures, and the imposition of Roman-favored political systems. The crushing defeat of the Achaean League, culminating in the razing of Corinth in 146 BCE, exemplified the brutal reality of Roman rule. What had begun as a seemingly benevolent protectorate transformed into outright subjugation, marking the end of Greek independence and the beginning of Roman hegemony in the eastern Mediterranean. Mummies carried off to Italy whatever wealth could be moved, including the works of art with which the Corinthians had adorned their cities and their homes. Polybius tells us how Roman soldiers used world-famous paintings as boards for their games of dice. Epilogue. Our Greek heritage. Greek civilization may have ended around 325 AD, but its legacy continues to permeate the modern world. Transmission of knowledge. Greek culture spread throughout Europe and the Near East through its colonies and institutions like the library in Alexandria, influencing Roman, Byzantine, and Islamic cultures. Syrian Christians adopted elements of Greek learning and passed them on to the Arabs, who then carried them across North Africa to Spain. Foundations of modern society. The Greeks' influence can be seen in our modern practices in fields as diverse as industry, government, and education. The very concept of democracy has its roots in ancient Greece. Enduring ideals, from our pursuit of physical excellence in gymnasiums and stadiums to our exploration of philosophical concepts like eugenics and self-control, the echoes of Greek thought resonate through the ages. The idea of striving for a balance between body and mind, exemplified in their Olympic Games and philosophical discourses, continues this day. Religious practices. The influence of Greek mystery religions, like the Eleusinian and Orphic mysteries, can be seen in the development of Christian theology and its rituals. The concept of a divine figure sacrificing himself for humanity, prominent in Christianity, finds its roots in these ancient Greek belief systems. Literary legacy. Our language is replete with words of Greek origin. Our scientific vocabulary borrows heavily from Greek terminology. And our literary forms, like the lyric, the ode, and the drama, all trace their origins back to ancient Greece. Artistic heritage. Many modern cities boast buildings that draw inspiration from classical Greek temples. Scientific inquiry. The Greeks' emphasis on reason and observation laid the groundwork for scientific inquiry as we know it. Mathematicians like Euclid and Pythagoras developed concepts in geometry and trigonometry, while philosophers like Democritus explored the nature of the atom. Philosophical foundations. Perhaps the greatest gift of the Greeks was their dedication to philosophy, their relentless questioning and exploration of the human condition. From the idealism of Plato to the atomism of Democritus, from the stoicism of Zeno to the Epicurean pursuit of pleasure, the Greeks explored a wide spectrum of philosophical ideas that continue to influence modern thought. Greek civilization may be gone, but its spirit lives on in every facet of our culture. Despite their flaws, the Greeks gave us a model for a life that celebrates reason, beauty, and the exploration of the world around us.